Victor sat at the small wooden table in their cramped kitchen, staring at the chipped rim of his coffee mug. The wallpaper was peeling, the window let in a draft, and the refrigerator hummed louder than it should have. To him, none of it mattered. He was happy, or at least he thought he was. For Victor, happiness was simple: sharing a warm meal with Elena, the woman he loved, and dreaming about a better tomorrow. But lately, Elena's eyes no longer held warmth. They held calculation, impatience, disappointment. That morning, as he spread jam on a piece of bread, she entered the kitchen in a silk robe she had bought with the last of her savings. She didn't sit across from him. She leaned against the doorway with her arms folded, her lips tight. "Victor," she began, her voice cold. "We can't go on like this." He looked up, startled. "What do you mean? We're managing. I'm working overtime. Things will get better." "Better?" She let out a bitter laugh. "You call this better? This box we live in, the constant worry about bills, the second-hand clothes. I didn't marry you to live like a beggar." Her words stung sharper than any knife. He swallowed hard. "I'm trying. I promise, I'll make more. I just need time." "That's what you've said for years," she snapped. "Time, effort, patience. I'm done waiting. I need a man who can give me the life I deserve. Not scraps, not promises, reality." He stood, his chair scraping the floor. "Elena, you knew who I was when you married me. You knew I wasn't rich. I thought you'd become someone," she spat. "But you're still the same poor, small man." The kitchen fell silent. Victor's chest tightened, but he forced himself to speak calmly. "I may not have much, but I have love. Doesn't that matter?" Her face hardened. "Love doesn't pay rent. Love doesn't buy me the dress I want or the car I need. I've met someone, Victor. Someone who can give me everything you can't." The words shattered him. His knees felt weak. "You met someone?" She didn't flinch. "Yes, Alexander. He's successful, wealthy, respected. He makes me feel like a queen. Something you could never do." Victor staggered back, the breath knocked from him. For a moment, he couldn't speak. His entire world, every sacrifice, every dream, crumbled in a single confession. "Elena," he whispered, his voice breaking, "I gave you everything I had. Maybe it wasn't much, but it was real. How can you throw it away for money?" Her eyes flickered with something. Guilt, perhaps, but it vanished as quickly as it came. "Because money brings security. Because I refuse to spend the rest of my life in poverty with a man who has no ambition. I'm filing for divorce. You'll sign the papers." Victor's fists clenched, his knuckles white. Part of him wanted to beg, to remind her of the nights they laughed together in the park, of the cheap but thoughtful gifts he'd saved for, of the vows they had exchanged under the church bells. But another part, the stronger part, knew it was useless. She had made her choice. He nodded slowly, his eyes burning. "If that's what you want, I won't stop you. But remember this, Elena, love is not something you can buy. And one day, you'll realize that." She turned away, unwilling to meet his gaze. "We'll see. The divorce was swift, clinical. Elena hired an expensive lawyer. Victor, unable to afford one, signed whatever documents were placed in front of him. She walked out of their apartment with her head held high, leaving behind only emptiness and silence. The gossip spread quickly among friends and neighbors. She left him for a rich man, they whispered. Some pitied Victor, others mocked him. But he didn't defend himself. He buried the pain deep inside and disappeared from the social circles they once shared. Nights were the hardest. The bed felt enormous and cold without her. He found himself staring at the ceiling, replaying her words over and over. "I need a man who can give me the life I deserve." Each repetition was a wound, but also a spark. In the months that followed, Victor worked tirelessly. He took extra shifts at the construction site, then learned new skills in the evenings. He enrolled in courses on business management, investing the little he had in books and online lectures. Every rejection, every failure only hardened his resolve. The pain of betrayal became fuel. The memory of Elena's contempt became his fire. He stopped drinking cheap beer with his old buddies and started jogging at dawn. He traded his worn-out jacket for clean, pressed shirts, even if they were simple. Slowly, step by step, he was transforming, not just his life, but himself. Meanwhile, Elena flourished, or so it seemed. She moved into a luxurious apartment with Alexander. Her social media gleamed with pictures of yachts, dinners at five-star restaurants, and diamond jewelry. She posed with an air of triumph, as if to prove to the world, and perhaps to herself, that she had chosen wisely. But beneath the glitter, a shadow lingered. Late at night, when Alexander worked late and she sat alone in the lavish living room, she sometimes thought of Victor. Not with regret, but with unease. Because deep down, she knew he had truly loved her, and she had thrown it away. Still, she pushed the thought aside. She had money, security, admiration. What more could she want? It wasn't until the day of her wedding to Alexander that the past returned to haunt her. She stood in her gown, diamonds glittering on her ears, the embodiment of success. Guests filled the grand hall, the scent of roses and champagne thick in the air. Everything was perfect, or so she thought, because that was the day Victor would walk back into her life, not the broken man she had discarded, but someone entirely new. Someone she never expected to face again. And his arrival would change everything. The wedding hall sparkled with wealth and elegance. Crystal chandeliers hung overhead, casting golden light across tables draped in white satin. Guests clinked glasses of champagne, their laughter mingling with the soft notes of a string quartet. Waiters in black uniforms glided between tables, serving delicacies most people would only ever see in magazines. At the center of it all was Elena, the bride. Her dress, a custom creation flown in from Paris, shimmered with pearls and lace. Every detail of her look had been perfected. Her hair swept into an elegant bun, her diamond earrings glinting with each turn of her head, her makeup flawless. She was radiant, a picture of success and beauty. But beneath her polished exterior, a faint unease gnawed at her. She had everything she thought she wanted: wealth, status, admiration. Yet as she looked in the mirror before stepping into the hall, she caught something in her reflection, emptiness in her eyes. She quickly pushed the thought aside. Today was her day. Her groom, Alexander, stood confidently at the front of the hall, surrounded by his wealthy friends. Tall, broad-shouldered, and sharply dressed, he carried himself like a man used to getting what he wanted. He laughed loudly, the kind of laugh that demanded attention, and his circle echoed it. To Elena, he represented the life she had chased after leaving Victor: security, luxury, and a future free from financial struggle. The ceremony was minutes away. Guests were settling into their seats, the music swelling softly in the background, when a murmur began near the entrance. Heads turned. The whispers spread quickly, like ripples in still water. And then the doors opened. Victor stepped inside. For many in the room, he was just another man, a stranger, tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit. But for those who knew the story, for those who had gossiped about Elena's scandalous divorce, recognition came in a wave. Gasps escaped lips. Some guests leaned toward each other, whispering in shock. Elena froze. Her blood turned cold. It had been years since she had seen him, but the man before her was not the same one she had left behind. Gone was the worn-out jacket, the weary expression, the beaten-down humility. This Victor radiated strength and confidence. His dark hair was neatly styled, his shoes polished to a mirror shine, his posture straight and commanding. He walked slowly but with purpose, each step echoing in the stunned silence of the hall. Elena's heart pounded so loudly she could hardly breathe. She had convinced herself Victor would never come back into her life. That he would fade into obscurity, swallowed by poverty and despair. But here he was, stronger, sharper, almost unrecognizable. The whispers grew louder. Isn't that her ex-husband? He looks completely different. My God, he's handsome. And so confident. Alexander's laughter faltered. He turned, his brow furrowing as he took in the stranger who commanded the room's attention more than he did. Who the hell is that? He muttered. Victor didn't stop walking until he stood at the edge of the aisle, only a few feet from the couple. His eyes swept the room, meeting the stares of wealthy guests, lingering briefly on Alexander, and finally locking onto Elena. The weight of his gaze was unbearable. She tried to hold her composure, but her hands trembled around her bouquet. Congratulations, Elena, Victor said, his voice calm but firm. It carried across the hall without effort, silencing the whispers. You've always wanted wealth, comfort, luxury. I see you've found it. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Alina's face flushed crimson. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Victor's lips curved into a faint, almost bitter smile. I used to believe love was enough. That working hard and dreaming together was enough. But you taught me a lesson. That to some people, love is worthless if it doesn't come wrapped in gold. Alexander stepped forward, his jaw tight. Who are you to come here and insult my fiancée on our wedding day? Victor turned his gaze on him, unshaken. I am the man she once vowed to love until death. The man she left behind because my pockets were empty. And yet, his eyes flicked back to Elena, I stand here today richer than I ever imagined. Not because of money, but because I learned how to rebuild after losing everything. The room was silent, all eyes darting between the three of them. Some guests looked at Elena with sympathy, others with judgment. Alexander scoffed, trying to mask his unease. If you think you can come here and... Victor cut him off smoothly, his voice steady. I didn't come to take her back. I came to thank her. Elena blinked, stunned. Thank me, she whispered. Yes, Victor said, his tone sharpening. Because losing you was the greatest gift of my life. You broke me, Elena. You made me feel worthless. But in that emptiness, I found strength. I built myself up, piece by piece. And now I know my value. Not in money, not in titles, but in resilience. His words pierced her like daggers. The bouquet in her hands shook as if it might fall. For a fleeting second, she saw flashes of the past. Victor carrying her home in the rain when she twisted her ankle. Victor staying awake all night to comfort her when her father was ill. Victor smiling even when he had nothing to offer but his love. And she felt something she hadn't felt in years, shame. Victor glanced at Alexander once more, his eyes calm, almost pitying. You may have her now. But wealth alone doesn't hold a heart. One day, Alexander, you'll realize what she values most. And I wonder, will it be enough for you when she does? The room erupted in whispers again. Alexander's face twisted with anger, but he didn't respond. Perhaps he couldn't. Victor looked back at Elena one last time. His expression held no hatred, no bitterness, only a detached finality. Goodbye, Elena. May you find the happiness you traded so much for. And with that, he turned and walked out, his steps steady, his back straight. The heavy doors closed behind him, leaving a stunned silence in his wake. For several long moments, no one moved. The air felt heavy, as though the very walls of the hall had absorbed his words. Elena's perfect day, her perfect image, had been shattered in front of everyone. Her groom's pride had been wounded, her guests left questioning her choices. And deep inside, beneath the diamonds and lace, her heart trembled with an unfamiliar fear. What if I made the wrong choice?